disconnected for whatever reason. I guess I pressed something.
Now I can hear you.
All right. A few opening. First of all, I'm looking for a volunteer to pick up finished plastic and cans for recycle. If anyone wants to take it and maybe convert it to cash. If nobody is available, I'll figure out what to do with it by end of the week. So that's one. Second, last meeting we have forgotten to close the glass door behind the office, so we will make sure that that's my fault. I was the one leaving. I didn't check the door, but going forward will be part of our routine. We have SUI, subordinate unit inspection, coming up. The group granted a delay due to change of command, so it gave me a little bit more of opportunity to prepare. With help of Lieutenant Colonel Swift and Second Lieutenant Younger, we have completed all the paperwork and requested the date to be August 27th. Hopefully it will be on or about that date, and we will close that chapter. This month we have 5 Tuesdays, so the last Tuesday on August 30th, 6 p.m. is our night hawk. Looking for volunteers to do the cooking. If anyone is interested, please let me know. There will be standard donations. I suggest we raise the donations to $10 this time because the price is going up and we need to compensate the cook for food. And as usually, if anyone is interested to bring guests, family, friends, please do so, especially if your friends or family are interested in aviation. Anything to do with civil air patrol, maybe they would like to come aboard and join us. One more item, we have Redbird Simulator, which belongs to the group, but it's sitting in our office, and I'm trying to upgrade it with help of Redbird. I made some good contacts there at the Oshkosh event a couple of weeks ago, and so far they've been in pretty clear communication with me that Redbird is willing to help us one way or the other. So I'll continue working with group to find out how that device landed here, because they need to trace it down to the source in order to make sure we are actually able to keep control of that device. With that said, I will pass the word to Roger. Today is safety night, and Roger presents one of the topics on that subject. Speaking of safety, fly safe, everyone. There was an incident today. The airplane en route to Corona had forced landing on I-91. They were lucky. Nobody got hurt. The pilot and the passenger walked away, although the airplane burned. So pay attention to checklist. Don't skip any items. Make sure you have enough fuel. Make sure every single item checks off properly. With this said, Roger, please.
Before you move on, do you have any more details as to what caused the downed aircraft?
No known cause for the downed aircraft. It looked like the pilot reported engine failed in flight, and they couldn't make it to Corona, so they chose to land in eastward direction on I-91. It was pretty busy traffic. I believe the incident happened at about 10 in the morning, so the traffic was reasonable. He managed to get between the cars, but he hit a couple of vehicles as he landed, crash landed essentially. One of the vehicles, it looks like one of the vehicles caught on fire because of the fuel dispensed from the left wing, because that's where the impact was. There is a video at the end. I can probably find it and show it to everyone. And then he got pushed towards the right side of the shoulder and hit a couple other vehicles on the way. FAA and TSB were on site when the video was recorded, and the best thing, nobody got hurt actually. So good job on pilot side landing the airplane and taking care of the situation.
I have the following people online. I have George, I have Tim, I have Mike, and I think those are the three that I have right now.
Yeah, so David, for those on Google, on YouTube, please record them as online on a attendance log, since it's a safety night, and I will make sure I'll take care of attendance on Teams.
What time is the SUI on the Saturday?
I don't have time yet.
We normally start around 8, so just be aware.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll probably be here, I'm not sure.
Yes, for all officers of the squadron, I will ask if possible to be here on premises in case if they do it in person. If they do it online, we will have Teams meeting created and we'll take care of it that way. But of course, we can gather here for simplicity. If anyone is interested to be here for online attendance, I support that. It's a good idea. All right.
I may have another meeting at 8 o'clock that morning, so I'm not sure.
Which is it?
27th,
Oh gosh.
Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of town.
Well, the 27th is not confirmed yet. At least I didn't see the confirmation. I will, as soon as I see it, I will notify everybody.
That's the one time I actually out of town. Actually get my vacation.
That's good.
Oh, give me a break. Actually, I don't really need much of anything here.
If you need
good.
to present it, I can help
No.
you.
No.
Okay.
I don't need it at all. I'm going to try to see. Okay, those are the ones that are online right there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Roger.
Hi, Mike. Gee, I wish you were here.
Why? I'm here.
Well, yeah, okay. I guess we can't shake hands, though, or anything, so.
That's good. that way nobody can get monkeypox.
Yeah, that's probably true. Very true. Oh, gee. Yeah, I know. I work at a hotel, and so I really have to watch out about that. But we still have the COVID glass in between us and the customers still. So, okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Roger, and I'm a safety officer. I think most everybody here knows who I am. This month, I was contemplating a couple of things, just kind of safety overall. It's not necessarily a specific subject, and yet it is. Of course, since everybody's online and on the TV or YouTube or whatever they're on, I can't see a show of hands, but I know that everybody here, almost everybody that flies, works with GPS. And if any of you people have flown without GPS days, you know, those of us who used to fly in the old days when it was all just point to point and all that, we really, you know, see the value of GPS. But I also know that one of the things that safety does run into is complacency. And basically tonight, what I'm going to talk about is a couple of stories that took place that involved GPS, one of which there was no GPS involved. But maybe after telling the stories, maybe it kind of gives a little more appreciation as to why, you know, why you got the GPS. Some of the younger guys who have only flown GPS, you know, it's not something that they, you know, it's always been there. I'm taking several refresher courses all the time that's online, and every single one of the refresher courses have GPSs. And I got to sit there and look at it and go, wow, okay, but I remember doing that exact same thing, but doing it by using like a stopwatch or using your watch or trying to figure out, point A to point B. The first story I just want to bring up, and it does involve things like GPS, but in the days before there was no GPS, there was absolutely none back in those days. And this is just a story to kind of give you a little idea of what would happen, what used to happen back in those days when you didn't have a GPS. Up in my hometown, I live north of a town called Ukiah. Some of you guys in the Civil Air Patrol know about Ukiah because Civil Air Patrol does a lot of flying in there. In Ukiah, there used to be a guy that used to own the car. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Chevrolet or Ford. I don't remember which, but he owned the car dealer there. And he used to own an airplane. And he used to fly all over the place. Did it quite often. He flew IFR. Well, back in these days, this is right about 1968 or so, 67. And in those days, everything north of Marin County basically had no radar. For FAA had no radar up there at all, except above 18,000 feet. And so anything below that, they had to go by what you told them where you were at, basically. And most of your approaches, of course, was all done by procedures. And all of us old timers who learned the old ways without GPS, that's what everything was done. It was all done off the, the approach chart, the IFR maps, all that stuff. Well, this individual who owned the dealership, a lot of people knew him. He was very well known. And he was coming back from a big long trip someplace. And he was approaching up towards Ukiah. And the procedure was that he would fly over the VOR, which was just west of the Ukiah airport. And then the procedure was that they would make a hello. They would call ATC and say that we're over Ukiah VOR. We want to make the approach of Ukiah. And of course, they would give them clearance to make a right-hand turn and start descending to go into their procedure approach into Ukiah Airport, IFR. Well, these guys did just exactly that. ATC gave them the clearance, and everything seemed to be okay until he never showed up at Ukiah Airport. So somebody's like going, well, they should have been here by now. Well, given a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours or so later, they started realizing, hey, something happened. So what did they do? They started the search. I believe the Civil Air Patrol was also involved with that. I can remember watching airplanes flying all over the place because everybody loves to get into search and rescue, especially back in those days. And they started flying around all over the place, around the airport, around Ukiah. They tried to do all of the, procedures to try to find these guys, what could have happened. Well, after about 2 weeks or so, now I'm on the thing there. Okay. After a couple of weeks, they never found anything. Nothing. There was absolutely nothing they could find. And so basically they kind of, reluctantly kind of gave up on their search, although many people didn't. I mean, a lot of people, when they take off from Ukiah Airport, would deliberately fly out looking. Maybe they might have went into the mountainside there near Ukiah. About 40 to 50 miles to the east of Ukiah, actually it's not even that far, it's a little bit closer, there's a lake called Clear Lake. It is one of the largest natural lakes in California. huge lake. They used to have ocean liners used to be on the thing back in the 30s. It was a very, very large lake. To the south side of that lake, there is a huge volcano, instinct. Yeah, actually, it still grumbles every once in a while, but there is a old volcano that sticks up called Mount Konocti. And some hikers were climbing, which was very popular in hiking. Beautiful view from up there looking over the lake and miles around. They went up there, and lo and behold, they found an airplane up there. So, yeah, the officials, the sheriff department, went up there, climbed up that mountain, went up there, and sure enough, it was the airplane that belonged to this guy that disappeared. Well, how in the world? I mean, that's not even close to the Ukiah VOR. And they're just like going, how could this be? The thing that was so sad about the thing is that when they hit the top of that mountain, they hit a little plateau. And the plane actually slid for several hundred yards. But, it did kill them because of the impact and all that. But the airplane actually, most of the airplane was still intact. And it was really sad because if they had just been only, 4 or 5 feet higher, they probably would have missed right over the top of it. But the big question was, my NTSB was that, what in the world? That's when they, and of course, they couldn't blame ATC, of course, because they do it all in the blind back in those days. And so it was pretty much kind of like, okay, the only thing they could come by was that pilot error, was that they thought they had the VOR in Ukiah, but they didn't. And they thought they were over the Ukiah VOR, but they really weren't. When ATC gave them the turn to turn right and start descending, they were actually flying over the lake out there instead. And that's the only thing they could figure out. Okay, now fast forward, okay, get up to what happened to me. I was a flight engineer on the C-141. We came out with the C-141C model. The C model was all glass, GPS, the whole works. Our fuel panel was all digital. It was right up to date, latest of the art, at the time. And the one thing the Air Force did do with the 141 in the Air Force is that they didn't want you to depend on GPS as being primary. The INS was primary. And of course, the reasoning behind that is that our airplanes from March Field were combat, and they were we were a unit that flew with navigators. We were the only units that flew with navigators, with the exception of McCord. McCord had navigators because we flew 300 feet off the ground below radar into enemy territory. And so knowing that GPS could be jammed, that was the reason why INS was primary. Well, we took off one day out of Hickam Air Force Base coming back home. No big deal, not a whole lot happened. And we took off. We climbed out what was the normal route that you do for everybody, commercial, no matter who you are, that same route that comes up. We got up to about just before we hit our altitude that we were going to. And at that time, we were starting to fly 35,000 feet. We used to fly 41,000 feet all the time. But a lot of the younger pilots that came in got nervous about that because they were also commercial airline pilots and they didn't like going up that high. The other reason, too, is that when one went to the bathroom, the other one had to go on oxygen over 35,000 feet. So, and the other guy didn't want to have to do that. So anyhow, we were flying along, and ATC called, and he says, "What heading do you have?" And they said, we looked, and we gave him the heading. And the ATC guy came back and said, "You're 90 degrees off from what we're saying you are. And you're going, huh? What? Really? So we did several troubleshooting things, and as a flight engineer, that I was in my cat's meow because now I got a chance to sit there and go through the books and do some troubleshooting. Well, ATC kept saying, okay, now you're like 180 off. What's going on? We're going, we don't know what's going on. So GPS didn't help us at all. It kept, everything in the cockpit was saying that our heading was what our heading was showing. Everything. Well, no, we still had the compass. As a general aviation pilot, I said, well, we need to go by the compass, which the pilots already figured that out, but I had to, because they're so used to doing everything by GPS and by, the whole, hi, Lon, how you doing? Yeah, you're missing the best part of the whole story. Yeah. So anyhow, we were flying along, and we finally just got to the point. Okay, we need to power everything down, So at 35,000 feet, we just shut everything off, just shut down everything. It's not the first time I had done that. I had done it before. It's kind of eerie when you're up there, and all you're hearing is the whine of the engines, and everything's dark. And so we went, powered everything back up again. Came back, and we read off our heading. ATC says, well, you're kind of like, 98 degrees off or whatever. And we said, oh, okay. And of course, the aircraft commander had already, and the flight engineer, which he involves us with, that, already decided we're going to go back at this point. I mean, we had already just, and ATC says, okay, yeah, just turn around. Where you're going to have to do dead heading. In other words, we're going to have to follow what they tell us to go. And I'm sitting there going, here we are in a modern 4-engine jet, United States Air Force, and we're having ATC do like we did in the Cessna 172 when I first learned how to fly. And the only thing that we could do was figure out what our altitude is. I mean, that was okay. We knew our altitude. That was it. And so they brought us on in. They took us way out to the south and brought us out into the ocean like as if we were coming in from off the Pacific end. Brought us around that way, took us down to 15,000 feet, and they go, okay, turn right, stop, turn left, stop, turn. That's how they did it. And, of course, we were paying attention to the whiskey compass. And then they drove us in. And they cleared, I forgot which one. It was not the long runway, but it was that runway that cuts across there. And drove us right straight into there, and they said, okay, start your descent. And they just talked us right on down. And they did the steer right, stop, turn. We just did that all the way down. And then, of course, we got to the point where we could see everything. And we got visual. Okay, we'll take over from here, and then we landed. Nobody ever figured out what went wrong. Could not duplicate.
That was a military aircraft?
Yeah. Yep, C-141. Yeah. And I'm just like going, wow, at those days, I didn't know Bob. I probably would have been sitting there calling Bob up on my phone. What do we do now? But
Look out the window, get a wind check from the ocean, and just take on the
pretty much, that's what we did. The problem was it was nighttime by the time we got back. Yeah, when we took off, it was day. When we found the problem, it was day. But by the time we got down there, it was dark. So we really couldn't see much of anything except the lights. And which that was nice, being to see the lights, but we just aimed right there, and that was it. And so it was pretty easy, but it was so, really, I was just sitting there going, I never would have thought I ever would have to do that here. But anyhow, at that point, that's when somebody on the crew, and I don't know if it was one of the pilots, says, wow, I really think that having a handheld GPS would always be nice to have, you know. Uh, it that's when I got to realize, that this what I've heard people talk about, this newfangled stuff, One of the things about the old first GPSs that came out, they were kind of, when I went out to Catalina Island and got a check out to land there, we had to do that at the Aero Club. That was one of the requirements. And we used a GPS coming back. And I remember trying to stay on that track on the GPS. It was just a handheld one. And I was just sitting there going, wow, I mean, this is super neat. I mean, it's a lot of the younger kids, I don't think, really appreciate it and understand and know how valuable that darn thing became. And the whole point behind my story is just that there is a reason why technology for a general aviation and for the airlines is a good thing for most of the things that have come down. It really, the ADS-B is supposed to make you a lot more aware of what's going on, especially if you have in and out both. They've made these things affordable for general aviation. Obviously, Air Force airlines came out with all this stuff, years ago because they could afford it. But general aviation, for the most part, in 1968, there was, the airlines were flying, with all the latest equipment, but most general aviation guys could not afford any of that stuff, let alone the fact that a Cessna 172 couldn't hold the computers to do that stuff. So, it's the whole idea is that you've got to realize, have an appreciation for what we have today. Now, there are some out there that will tell you that they don't like it because there's some certain things that have happened with mostly the airlines. Like what happened to what was the 727s that crashed because of the new things they have on the airplane that went haywire. The B-2 bomber that crashed at Guam, things like that happen. But the thing is that it's always been that way, where throughout the years there's always been an ironing out of something that is new and fancy. Unfortunately, people do get hurt because of it. A lot of I went to a couple of classes with ADS-B along with our safety officer out at the base, and there were some people, most people were excited about ADS-B, but there were a few of those old timers that were sitting in that classroom, and it was done right here at the terminal down here, that you could tell they're like, yeah, right, okay, yeah, I'm going to put this on my airplane because the FAA says you have to have it. But I get the feeling they wouldn't put it on their airplane if they didn't, if it wasn't told that they had to have it, especially if they're flying out of here. Now, my hometown up there, I can tell you right now, and Alaska, that there's people up there probably don't have any of this stuff at all. They do everything just by, looking out the window and hope the weather doesn't come in. I knew several people that flew up in Alaska, and they'll tell you, if you fly without GPS up there, you're dumb. It's because the weather does come in, and I know it does. I've flown with the Air Force up there, low-level stuff, and I'm telling you, man, the weather, I mean, the clouds will just, boom, just come on in before you even know what happened. So those two incidences, it makes you appreciate the modern, newfangled stuff. It really does, and I really think if it's used properly, it can really lessen the amount of accidents and so forth. Now, you got, of course, some of the negative side, like when we have, like with our airplane, and unfortunately that one that crashed out of Las Vegas, when we started getting the glass cockpit, they got so caught up in working with that glass cockpit that they just went, crashed right into a mountainside. And that can happen. But one of the things I like about the former president of AOPA had told us one time when he came to one of our meetings, or we went to a safety meeting that he was one of the speakers, and he said one of the things he did when he got into the glass cockpit plane is that he turned everything off down to the most simplest instrument and started from there. But he said it wasn't until he got used to flying the airplane with the lowest level of technology, and then as he got used to it, then he went the next step up, and then the next step up. But a lot of people jump in the airplane and they want to just, wow, this is neat stuff. I want to, fly this airplane, and they just turn everything on. I think that, technology is super good, but you have to be cautious when you start coming into it. The individual that crashed up in Ukiah would have prevented his accident if he had a GPS. Well, nobody really knows. I mean, he thought he was over the Ukiah VOR. For me, flying VORs was one of the easiest things in the world. I mean, it was never complicated to me. I always thought it was the neatest thing in the world at that time, and that's all we had. But for some reason, he thought he was over Ukiah, but he wasn't. He was 40 miles off. And so, would he have crashed the airplane even if he had a GPS? Who knows? It's hard to say. With our situation, you do have failures. It does happen. And it's just like, if you go up totally depending on what you got on your iPad, then there's something wrong. You need this because they still do sell paper charts. You can still get them, and I do not believe, especially if you're flying cross country, if you leave that field going on a cross country with just your iPad and your phone, then I think you need to go back to school. You need to have something that's solid with you. Now, how much longer they're going to keep doing that, I don't know. They may decide, there is going to be a day when your iPad will be fail-proof. But even the Army, and I have a big old huge article about how they require all of their helicopters to go out with a hard copy of a navigational chart with them that they can immediately grab and pull out, or their crew chief at least can get it, because they know that your electronic equipment can fail. And I went through it one time myself. That's all I have. Any questions?
It wasn't the Chinese that affected your GPS?
Well, it could have been. Well, I could tell you a story of how we got affected. Yeah, we did when we tried to land just on the edge of Russia one time. We did get, we got Miji'd. They shut us off. We were making an ILS approach, and it was solid ice just coming down everywhere. The runway was this much ice on it, and somebody jammed our whole system in the airplane. That was in Germany. We were right on the buffer line. And they know that happened because, they verified that somebody jammed everything. Fortunately, we had an Aussie who was flying the airplane. He was an officer exchange program, super pilot. But you were trying to understand when he talked to you. You're trying to figure out what he was saying. So, but everything was bloody this, bloody that, But he was a good pilot, and he got us. Boom! He planted that airplane right in that ice. We didn't slide. We didn't go anywhere. He just let the thing go. We just coasted. So, any questions? Anybody else? Anybody want to send anything in?
Well, as the newest pilot probably in the group, I can probably say my DP failed my iPad within, 2 minutes into the flight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as like the cheating, I didn't bring the. I did have a whole sectional with me, but I figured if I unfolded the sectional right there would have been a serious problem.
Right.
So what I had actually done is I went when I got my flight plan, I went to SkyVector and printed enough of the sectional from SkyVector that had my flight plan on it.
Okay.
And that was acceptable. Like he actually thought that was a really good idea
okay.
because it fit on my knee board. But he failed it and immediately made me fall back to using a paper navlog and navigate the way I was taught to in ground school.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, I've read the advisory circular for FAA's guidance on EFBs. FAA's guidance is we'll treat it like any other instrument. So you still have to kind of, if you're going to make the electronics your primary, you need to make sure that they're backed up.
Backed up. Exactly.
And when I talked to him about it after I'd already passed, he said, he said that's exactly the way that we want you to think about it because yes, we understand single pilot operations, a lot of situational awareness, but if it becomes your crutch, it will be, you'll run into a really bad situation.
Exactly.
So the private pilot, they do, at least the DPs I've seen, they still want you to be able to fly the plane without all that assistance. I'm at a point now where I was trained all steam gauges.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting for the IFR, and that's kind of the question is, how much electronic assistance do I really want to train with? Because one of the advisory things is you should train the way you plan on flying. So if you're going to use iPads aren't authorized for IFR.
Yeah.
So are you going to use a glass cockpit or are you going to use steam gauge?
Right.
And you need to train and fly that way and really not switch over during your training. So that's
right.
And also about GPS. So oddly, I just listened to a podcast and they're talking about if you are flying cross country and you're using GPS and suddenly you find that your GPS signal is gone, everything else seems fine, but GPS signal it's lost its track.
Right.
Advise ATC, and you can use there's a code word called stop buzzer. It's if you're near a military operational area, they might be testing their GPS jamming. And stop buzzer will tell ATC that you think you're being, inadvertently jammed, and they can contact the military authorities and find out if they can stop, doing the jamming. That was an interesting little find. I just happened to hear that yesterday.
That's interesting. Yeah, we used to. It was funny because I used to back when I was first getting my private. I flew from Vandenberg Air Force Base over to Visalia, where you go right over Navy Lemoore, and they actually came out not because I was there, but they called me up on the radio and said, "Hey, we need to practice on you. We really won't shoot you down, but what we'll do, we're gonna fly around you and track you. Okay, is that all right?" And I says, "Yeah, this is an Air Force Aero Club airplane, so if you do shoot me down, the Air Force will probably get you." But yeah, they did that, and they flew their fighters they just flew all around me like this, underneath, above, and around, and they called and they says, "Well, thank you, and did a good job." So, but yeah, we had several of our guys who were getting their check rides at the Aero Club, and there was a couple of them who the DPE deliberately on purpose did something where they were forced to have to use a little extra, to figure out where they were going to go. One of them he was over, I don't know if you remember him, Bob, but one of our guys, he was, and well, okay, I'm talking.
We can't see you on Teams.
Well, okay, well, I know that, but I'm talking to the guy in the back. Anyhow.
I want to see you talk to him.
Huh? Well, I know what we go to the television part. But yeah, see, my wife watches this too. Now I lost my train of thought thanks to Mike. The guy, he was flying out of, I think he was over by old Norton or San Bernardino, and he told him, "Okay, I want you to fly from here to to here at Riverside Airport. I don't remember all the details, but I can remember it was like a trick question, because if he had just went ahead and just turned and went here, he was violating something. I don't remember what it was. But he caught it, and he looked at his chart and actually saw on this chart, because it's something that doesn't show up on the iPad. And he did it on purpose to see if he was aware or what he would do. And he remembered it was one of our sharp guys, one of the ones that I think it was, I can't think of his name right now. I can picture his face, but one of our sharpest students that we had, and he pulled out the chart, which he had right there, and on the chart it shows something that if he had flown, he would have flown right through this. And so it's like
It was like an approach area into Ontario. They extended out.
I'm gonna do this for Bob.
Now, if you look on the thing, they're always around, and then the approach, and it's going to say 5,000 to 7,000 feet or whatever it's going to be. You can go above that and you can go below it, but you can't go through it. But actually, all the charts in an iPad are legal. They're up to date, and they follow the FAA. So I'm kind of curious about then and now, because you can fly, and it says that you can do it, but you can't do it unless you've got something as a backup for IFR.
Right, yeah. That
Well,
was
they don't
one
want
of.
you to do it. If you remember, my old iPad would take
gee.
and go black and green with stripes. I said, how many times do you people fly with an iPad? These guys raise their hand. Oh yeah. I said, you use all the charts? I said, yeah. So I showed him my iPad. I said, what happens if it does this? And it all it had was green and red lines. Apple never did figure out what was wrong with it. And I finally got rid of it and got into another one. But I said, what happens if you're using that for your navigation, and now you get green and red stripes in there and you have no charts? Well, I can use my phone. Beep. You could be into an area that's going to be restricted, by the time you figured that one out. So.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was something where it was very subtle, and when he found it on the chart, and that's exactly what the DPE wanted to see. He wanted to see, the big thing he wanted him to see is him pulling out the hard copy chart. That was what he was looking for.
Well, so as far as the airlines are concerned, you got 3 systems. Each one carries their own iPad with all the latest in it, updated weekly. And then you got the GPS system in the airplane. So if you got one failure, you can always see what the other's going to do. So you really got 3 systems to back you up.
And one addition to the subject of electronic flight bags, we should all treat it as an instrument, and we should pre-flight it as any other instrument. We should make sure all the updates are loaded, that if we are flying through multiple regions, we should pack the flight, so all the sectional are in the flight bag, and the backup should be pre-flighted the same way. For instrument-rated pilots, it's a good idea to practice an instrument approach with AHARs simulated by the EFB. Example could be if you have Sentry, a DSB device, it can give you AHARs information to your iPad, but it's no good if you didn't try to fly. Try flying an instrument approach with AHARs with a safety pilot or CFI, and make sure you're familiar with it, because it may require you to calibrate AHARs on flight bag EFB in flight, and it may distract you even more. So it's a good tool to have. Make yourself comfortable with it, and don't be afraid to use it. If your whole electrical system fails on aircraft and the backup power fails, that may be your only escape in case of emergency.
So I carry charts. I always have the chart to fly my approach up on my holder, and then I use my iPad to track me on that instrument approach, because it'll give me more accuracy in regards to where I am. But the other one is that if this fails, I'm still on the ILS or I'm still on the VOR. I have my chart and I have my cross-check references already tuned in. So that's my backup that I do.
And one thing I will add for everybody, if you're curious and you get into what does the FAA think about EFBs, Advisory Circular 91-78. So I've taken a read at it. It's pretty interesting because it's one of the first things I encountered when I started learning. I was like, do they even allow iPads? What's going on? They do, but they pretty much say what everybody has said here is it's another instrument. You should learn how to use it. You should practice using it. You should pre-flight it, and you should have redundancies. So
Exactly.
that's pretty much it.
If
And
you
it shouldn't
fly,
interfere with your flying. That's the other thing.
Right.
to
yes,
say.
and don't forget, if you fly in a hot weather and
yeah.
the sun is straight shining on your iPad, it will overheat.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
protect it from overheating. Provide adequate air circulation around it. Make sure it cools down sufficiently, especially if you're charging it. When you charge your iPad in flight, it's heating it up even more. Keep an eye on that for sure. And your backup should be in a cool space to begin with. So if your main iPad overheats, you take out the backup, it should be ready to go on the spot.
Here's another thing. My iPad works off my ADSB. That's my GPS. So when I was using a battery and it was sitting up on the dash, my battery antenna, whenever it gets so hot it shut off. And now you're looking at the iPad, and the only thing you got left is a VOR or an RNAV system to get you to the destination because it'd always heat up and it'd fail on you. That was the only advantage. I said, I've had it. It's time to change to the ADSB with the GPS in it because now my laptop picks it up. But other than that, that poor little battery that had the antenna in it, Century, it wasn't a Century, what is it anyway? Stratus. Yeah, the Stratus system would get awful bloody hot.
Right. Good.
Okay.
Excellent.
I'm done.
Well, let's say we got 10 minutes of safety. I don't know how to. I'm not going to project those pictures. but
Let's give
we'll
option
talk.
quickly to
Yeah.
Lon while you're preparing, so Lon can give us an update on aircraft.
Oh yeah, Lon's here. That's right.
Well, I just spent the last hour over there at Maintenance 1 with the aircraft 743, Charlie Papa. And the short story is that the number one lower lead, which comes off the left mag, is bad. And unfortunately, they didn't have a spare at the FBO there, so he ordered a new one, and Mike Swift has volunteered to go pick it up tomorrow, along with some other parts for Kevin, and he should get it and then get it installed and checked out, certainly by the close of business tomorrow, if that's the only thing wrong, because he started with maybe a spark plug being fouled and it was intermittent for a while, but I was right there while we tested out the lead, and it was bad. It appeared that it had been pinched, halfway through the lead, halfway through the length, and we cut it right at that point and tested both the ends of that lead, and they still both tested bad. So there's something, with that lead. So anyway, we ordered a new one, and should be there tomorrow. Plane should be up. I've contacted email, letting various people know about the status of this that are looking at flying it. So my mission tomorrow has been scrubbed, pushed off until next week. The nav database, I updated it today, so it's good till like 8 October. And also for our Turbo 206, I updated the nav database in that today also. That's it.
One more safety-related update. have received an email from Captain Balderson notifying that there will be a so-called water survival course held on 17th of September at Los Alamitos base. All current aircrew members are qualified to apply. Make sure you fill out the form if you are interested in that course, so you can actually get in line. It will be in high demand. The prerequisite for the course will be online learning management system class, which participating members should complete at least no longer than 30 days before the course. The cost for the course is $10, so it's way worth it. Please apply and participate. Okay, Chris?
Oh, all right, good. I just had a super quick little tidbit. Oh, you can leave it there. I'll just move over. So my weekend was exciting. I don't know. I don't know if you can see this or. What's that? It's so this was I was at Corona Municipal Airport over there on Sunday, and I was with a buddy in a hangar, and next thing we know, we hear sirens, we hear police go rushing by. We were 2 rows over, and we walked out, saw a big billowing cloud of smoke. We grabbed fire extinguishers, and for some unknown reason, we both ran into the middle of a hangar fire and tried to put it out. What we didn't know was the fire you see right there, and I don't know if you guys can see it. I don't know. Can they see it? I don't know. I don't know if you guys can see that TV over there, but there's a hangar fire occurring. Those flames that you see there are they're the subject of a fire that started on the other side of that hangar. And on the other side of that hangar was a large, like, RV bus-like thing that had caught on fire, burnt all the way through that hangar, and then burnt into this hangar. The people that were working in this hangar managed to push that Aerostar out, so it didn't catch on fire. But in the other hangar, it was the RV and a Piper Malibu that just pretty much melted in place. So fire safety, I would say, don't run into hangars that are on fire. I don't care how good you think you are. I was with a volunteer firefighter. I've done fire training before, but that was a dumb idea. But both of us were okay. We didn't get smoke inhalation or anything, but don't do that. And this was really, really bad. Like this could have been very, very dangerous. The people that were in this particular hangar were cleaning it when they started hearing crackling noises. And by the time we showed up with fire extinguishers, the aerosol bottles had started to pop off and explode. So very exciting day. Let's see. I might have another, closer picture. I'm sorry for you guys. You can barely see it there. What's that? No, that is a workbench.
Oh, really?
That's a workbench in the back that's on fire. And then the culprit, there's your culprit. That's an RV. Again, sorry for you guys at home. There's an RV that looked like it was in its engine bay. Yep. So that is what started the hangar fire. And it's very interesting because during the SARX at Cable, there was an RV storage that caught on fire and did pretty much exactly what this one did. Started to explode. Obviously, all the propane and gasoline inside of it exploded as well, and then set other RVs on fire and caused a chain reaction. Scared a lot of us at the SARX. We thought a plane had crashed, but that's what happened. So,
Was that hangar were they working in this hangar, or was it closed up for this fire?
I don't know the details of how this RV caught on fire. Nobody was offering that.
If they had it plugged in with that size RV, the amperage is pretty high to draw all of the equipment.
Yeah.
And the generator sits in the back along with that engine.
Right. Yeah, the question was, was that RV plugged in, and was it giving power? Was it receiving power? Which was it? That's a really good question. Oh, I was like, hey, that sounds like me. But anyways, that's it. Just a little bit of weekend excitement. Kind of fits within the safety theme because I haven't used a fire extinguisher in a very long time. So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't melt down because. So I didn't get a picture of the Piper Malibu, but there's a Piper Malibu in the hangar with this RV, and the cockpit. You could see how all the headliner and everything had melted and dripped down into the cockpit. So that is a total loss of a Piper Malibu. Anyways, back to our commander.
All right, that was exciting. Stay safe. There is an ongoing deal from, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but one of the manufacturers of aircraft fire extinguishers, they have Oshkosh deal, 10% off. I bought one for myself, so I'll be more than happy to. Yes, Helen. So they manufacture the smallest fire extinguishers, and it fits in the Moonies.
That's the worst thing for an airplane because it could smother you to death. Well, and the Navy developed it. It's interesting. The Navy, when they first came out with Halon, they had a guy sitting in a room that was fireproof, and they poured this gasoline all around him, and they lit it on fire. And he's sitting there, and then they release the halon. Well, halon is heavy, and you see the stuff come down. You can do this, and then the fire in a big ring just dissipates. It's gone, and he's still sitting in the chair. And he gets up and walks away. That's great if you don't breathe it, but it'll kill you.
Yeah, I was going to say that stuff just sucks the oxygen right out of you.
Hold your breath if you have to use it for as long as you can, and ventilate the cabin ASAP. As soon as you're confident fire is extinguished. So yeah, practice all emergency procedures as frequently as possible, even in chair flying. That's the way it works in our brain. If we exercise it at least in our mind more than once, it will come to use when we need it.
There was some talk about from National in an email that they were going to put out a mission that pilots could fly with a CFI on some of these emergency procedures. Do you know if they've come up with a mission number?
Yes, actually, I will post the reference to the mission number. It's active, and in fact, it's not optional. It's mandatory for all Form 5 pilots to take that opportunity and fly that mission. Otherwise, if we don't fly it by end of the fiscal year, we will be grounded until we do. So it's a required exercise. It's not optional, and I will post it on Teams. The whole text from the operations officer who initiated that mission. Go ahead. In our group, there are only 3 instructors qualified to take you on that flight. Terry Pratt is one of them. He is actually not an instructor pilot, but he is a mentor pilot. He has an exception because he is more than qualified to help us with that option. As soon as we have our aircraft up and running, let's do it, all of us, ASAP.
What's it consist of?
They posted syllabus. The major focus of that syllabus is impossible turn, 180. So they want us actually to practice it and understand in which conditions it's safe to exercise 180 turn back to the airport. The syllabus has reference to a mentor pilot website, which actually has like a lecture for about an hour on impossible turn, how to do it properly, what we should look for in those situations, and so on and so forth. And
this is evidently you're talking about something in takeoff and then simulating that you have something that may be failing or difficulty with, and you need to make a 180 get back on landing.
That's correct. But the whole mission is not strictly dedicated for impossible turn. It is in fact for all emergency procedures which should be practiced during that mission. It's funded mission. We should take use of it, good use of it.
Just have to have a plane and some CFIs.
Right. Besides Terry, it's Trent Ferris and TK, Sean Telecarante. So, in our group, these are 3 people we should go to and schedule the flights. I haven't done it yet because it was hard to get an airplane. Well, you can schedule a mission on any South California airplane which you are willing to drive to, and your check pilot can go with you. So as long as you agree to and you book a specific plane, you can go to Fullerton, you can go to Palm Springs, you can go to Whiteman, anywhere you want, and there is available airplane you checked on.
I'm trying to locate an instructor, by the way. Finally getting around to that.
Yeah, Trent Ferris is pretty good. He's actually back in town, so.
Oh, I wanted to save Ferris for my check ride, so I'm trying to find a different instructor.
Well, there's 2 Ferrises.
Yes.
Son and the father. The father, Trent. I just flew
And
him
and
last
and his
week.
son is Ryan.
He's an instructor.
Oh, okay.
He's not a check pilot. Ferris is the check pilot.
Okay. Because turns out my instructor was teaching one of our instructors multi, so I reached out to him first, and he hasn't responded.
Yeah, Ryan Ferris is hard to reach. He never responded to me. Trent, on the other hand, is extremely responsive. And Sean is responsive unless he's walking. So his schedule could be busy. He could be away for a whole week, but if he's in town, he's active.
You're taking the fans of that. I need my high performance now.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Do we have any questions from the group online?
No,
Nope.
sir. Great job tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everyone who contributed. Appreciate it. And meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right. Take care, Mike.